Boys, do you want to learn how to play the French defense? Well, this is the French defense in just 5 minutes. After you play these first two moves, White's most likely move is going to be e5. You should go c5 here. They will likely go c3. Now you will play knight c6. In this position, knight to f3 is now the most common move. You will play queen to b6, pressuring this pawn, and disallowing the bishop from going to e3 because they will take this pawn. In this position, if instead of playing c3, they play knight f3, you can still just play knight to c6, as they're probably just going to go c3. Now in this position, there are two most common moves, which are a3 and bishop to d3. First, we're going to go over bishop to d3. Against bishop d3, you will nope, not that. You will take, and then you will not take, because even though it looks free, what will happen is you will lose your queen, because danger levels, and, whatever. Now, in this position, your best move is bishop to d7. Most of the time, they will play castle. Now, you can take, and after they play the most common move, knight to c3, you don't actually want to play queen takes e5. You want to consolidate your advantage by instead playing a6, and now it's minus 0.7. Back over in this position, if they play a3, you can actually play c4 and gain an advantage. The reason why c4 is so good is because it blocks in this bishop, because this is defended, and it blocks in the knight from getting to c3, because this pawn can't advance. Now here, white will play knight b to d2, and now play knight to a5, threatening getting the knight over here eventually. And after bishop to e2 and then bishop to d7, you have a pretty solid position here with a 56% win rate. Now the most interesting position here is if they immediately take the pawn. Now, you want to take back with the bishop. And with this position, you can get a really good attack. Like, for instance, knight to f3 is the most common move for white. Now, instead of playing the best move, knight to c6, you will play queen to b6, lining up over here, pressuring this. And after the queen moves forward here, likely to e2, play knight c6, and you have a nice position here. High win rate, pretty good for the engine, is good. You got some attack there. Now we have the exchange French, and I have a great recommendation for this. After they play knight to f3, you will play bishop to d6. Now, if white plays more passively here with something like bishop to d3, what you want to do is play knight to c6. Now, once they play c3, which will likely happen, play the interesting move knight to e7. It's not often that you see the knight on the e and c squares, but this is a pretty common thing with the French defense. Now they might castle, and usually castling and c3 can really go like interchangeably, but usually in those past two moves, those two moves will happen. Now play bishop to g4, pinning the knight to the queen. Now here, bishop to g5 might be played, which is really not a good move, because now you play bishop to h5, freeing up the pawns a little bit. So now if they play the passive move knight to d2, which is very common, you can play f6, they move back. Okay, so actually I messed up the move order here. The correct move order is h5, this, and then f6, they move back, and then you play g5. Now, h4 is obviously the best move. They're forced to take, and now you have a pretty strong attack over here, threatening h3 very soon. Actually, you can play it. However, you don't need to rush h3. Queen c2 is the most common move here, setting this up. All you need to do is castle long. It's plus 0.5, and you have a 55% chance of winning. But I don't know, just like, play good chess or something. If c4 is played in this position, you can play knight to f6. We have knight to c3, c6, and a lot of the time people will play bishop to e2 here. Now you can just take, castles, bishop to f5, and now you're playing some chess. I don't know what to tell you. There's not really any traps in this setup. If they play knight to c3, well, here you can play knight to f6, e5, knight fd7, and then they will play, most commonly, f4, c5, And now you're playing this pretty much like you would play a advanced. After knight f3, knight to c6, they could play bishop to b5, which would be a mistake. After queen to b6, most commonly they'll take, and then it's dicey here. Most of the time white will castle here. Now you can take, c5, and it's pretty bad for white. It's -1 because you're getting this attack. A lot of the times in positions similar to this, maybe they'll play bishop to d2, which is even worse, because now after this, they go back. You can play this, preventing them from castling. There's also the fact that this knight is free. And of course, there's all the traps you can do with them moving this bishop and you just taking the pawn. But yeah, that is the French defense, at least mostly explained in 5 minutes. I might make a part 2 to, like, I don't know, clear some things up. Boing!